What's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here with the Nebula Music Podcast, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Yvette Young. Now, personally, I believe that this woman needs no introduction. She's absolutely phenomenal on guitar. Frankly, one of the best guitarists that I've seen in a long time, and she's killing the Instagram game. I guarantee you, if you open your phone, you open Instagram, her videos will be one of the first that you'll see under guitarists. But what's even crazier is how she got started playing guitar. Essentially, a gigantic health issue is what led her to playing guitar, and if it wasn't for that, she probably would not be playing guitar today. So I knew that I had to sit down with her, talk to her about her thought process, her story, her career, and I'm frankly blown away by how talented and how mindful Yvette is. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, what's up, guys? I am very excited today. I am super excited because I have the one, the only, and I mean that because this person is absolutely incredibly talented. Yvette Young joining me on the episode. Yvette, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Dude, I'm great, man. I mean, I wish I could show you guys some of these conversations that I have with my guests because they're so funny and they're so much fun. And Yvette, you're so busy. You're incredibly busy that we've tried to schedule this a couple times and we've just had to move it around. And so I'm excited that we finally get a chance to talk.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad we could make this work despite technology issues and timing.
I know, man. Skype has been a big issue lately for all podcasters. I'm not going to get into that, but if you're doing a podcast, just be prepared for some troubles with Skype. But anyways, Yvette, you are a very talented instrumentalist. And I mean that because you play multiple instruments basically, and you're talented at every single one of them. And I could spend a long time just, talking about you, but I would much rather you talk about yourself. So why don't you go ahead and catch us up a little bit? Maybe tell us what you're up to. Maybe a little bit of your backstory, and we'll go from there.
I guess I'll talk about what I've been doing this month. The reason it was so difficult to schedule a Skype in is because I'm actually here in Port Jefferson. I'm from California, by the way. So I'm in Port Jefferson, flew to East Coast to record at this place called Voodoo Studios.
Nice.
I've been tracking a 6-song album with my band Covet. And that's already done, and I'm staying an additional couple weeks to track my first solo piano album ever. Piano is my first instrument, so people know me as a guitarist mainly, but I'm really excited to get to kind of showcase my true love, which is piano. Yeah, I'm primarily, I played piano, classical piano since I was young, so this is a chance for me to pay it forward to my piano and violin teacher who really got me started in music. So yeah, it's a piano and violin album. I've been tracking violin the past 2 days, which is why it was difficult to schedule this Skype call, but I think we did it.
We did. And you know what? That's perfectly fine because if you're out there killing it, I have no problem rescheduling a million times because that's what you should be doing. And that's why you're on my show because you're absolutely at the top of your game. But I'm curious, dude. Okay. So piano, I obviously follow your stories. I love your account and I love everything that you do. And so I do see you playing piano from time to time on your stories. And do you feel like piano in terms of skill level, which one is greater, guitar or piano or maybe even violin? I'm just curious.
All right. Full disclosure, piano, I've been playing since I was 4. I had a 5-year episode where I stopped playing music entirely for health reasons, but I recovered and, piano, I kind of took it up again after that. And piano, I'm just the most comfortable on. It's my first language. And then violin is my second language because I've been playing it since I was 7. I used to play for 2 orchestras.
Wow.
And, guitar, I have no idea what I'm doing. I play guitar because it's I taught myself, I do everything by ear and I don't really know, I don't look at it conventionally, which I think is kind of a bad thing because sometimes I can't explain what I'm doing to people, but I have my own language for it. And I think I figured it out for myself. But yeah, guitar is definitely my weakest.
Wow. And I mean, okay, I'm speaking for myself, but you are fucking incredible at guitar. And if that's your weakest, Jesus, woman, I mean, come on.
I mean, I spend the most time on guitar and piano these days, but I think in terms of fluency, and like my ability to improvise, I think piano is way better. Guitar, I'm getting there. I'm getting a little better. I'm just really happy because every year I'm in this whole music thing. I feel like I improve a lot. So I'm just looking to constantly challenge myself and try to break out of my comfort zone.
Which is very important if you want to get better at anything. And, one of the things that caught my attention a bit with what you were saying is the health reasons. You said you stopped or at least weren't involved in music for 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's funny. My life story is funny. I used to hate music because I was pushed into it by my parents, like
Oh, man.
the classical world. It's just a lot of pressure because like you have to win competitions, and if it's all about perfection, it made me into like a crazy perfectionist. Gave me a lot of anxiety too. I feel like whenever you make something a competition, it takes away the fun aspect of it, and it kind of makes it feel very um just like you're under scrutiny all the time, and it takes away a lot of creativity because the focus is on like being the best,
Yeah.
and beating other people, which I think is kind of an unhealthy mindset. Speaking for myself, of course, like if that's your mindset, then, good for you. It's cool if that works for you. But for me, it was definitely detrimental to my mental health. And, I mean, long story short, I basically battled an eating disorder for like 5 or 6 years. I was in the hospital. So that's when I started teaching myself guitar as a way to like self-medicate and like find an outlet for all these like depressed feelings that I had. And it was also great because nobody controlled me on guitar. Nobody was trying to make me compete. I just did it for fun. And I don't know, there's something really pure about that.
That's absolutely, I'm blown away because I had no idea whatsoever. I based on what I've seen and stuff, you seem like, I didn't know any of that. And so I'm curious, like, and you know what? Feel free to stop me at any point if I'm, digging too deep, because sometimes I do tend to ask, what was that? Sorry.
Oh, I'm an open book. I would love for people to get to know me because I feel like people have a lot of assumptions on me based on what I post online. It's actually something that kind of gets me down sometimes. I feel like people have preconceived notions of who I am and what my life has been like. And like, I've certainly had a really unconventional, weird, and sometimes like not so perfect life. So I know everything online seems perfect, but that's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's not real shit. That's just what I choose to put out there. It's like you get to curate your own life however you want to present yourself.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what? I'm definitely part of, in that retrospect, you're absolutely right. Like, I didn't know any of your life story. And it's hard for anyone on Instagram or Facebook to really get to know someone. But I think you're on the ball when you say that, it's really what you choose to put up there. It's like, it's like Apple, in a way where like, it's not really the same thing, but the metaphor is being that, they sell phones, it's a great phone, but you don't see the factories where they're like building the phones. You know what I mean? You don't see the nitty gritty.
Exactly. And I wasn't harping on you by any means for not knowing like my life. Like, in fact, I would be really freaked out if you came up here and just like had like my hospital records and stuff. Like, I would just be like, "What the hell, Eddie?" So yeah, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. Like, everyone who's my friend knows that like if anything, I don't have a filter. I like say too much sometimes. So yeah, stop me if I'm like rambling.
All right, putting away the hospital notes. Cool. Not gonna ask that. Okay. So here's the thing. So I'm already amazed. I've been amazed with your career since before we even started talking. And I guess any sort of challenge, everyone faces challenges. Some are different than others, but your challenge to me seems rather unique and remarkable in the fact that you essentially, this need to play music for perfection basically became a problem. You were basically out of it for almost 5 years. How long did it take for you to start dabbling with guitar? Like from the point that you were maybe in the hospital or stopped playing music to playing guitar or starting to dabble in music again. How long did that break take?
So my whole, like on Instagram, my whole tagline is like, music is medicine. Like, I really do think that there's like a healing quality to it. When I was in the hospital, I decided to start to teach myself chords and like how to play guitar. And then I started writing songs. They're very basic, primitive songs, but like, I put lyrics to it, depressed lyrics. And then, yeah, art too. Visual art was a big reason, for why I recovered, I think. Just what I love about visual art. First of all, I'll answer your question. So the answer is while I was in the hospital, I played music just to pass the time and to like basically have an outlet. So I kind of got into it quickly after I left the hospital because I was forced because of physical reasons, like because I was so weak, essentially my heart stopped working because I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you starve yourself, your heart can shut down. And
Wow.
mine stopped working. So I had to be hooked up to basically like a machine that would beat my heart for me. And yeah, so I obviously couldn't do anything too physically demanding. So piano, violin, it requires a lot of physical energy and like standing and movement. So they kind of, and also the mental stress aspect of it, like the therapist at the hospital suggested that I remove everything from my life that gives me stress. So music was one of those things. But I'm kind of grateful because it allowed me to reset. Like as soon as I quit all of those instruments, I was allowed to come back to it, but on my own terms. And I was able to do it for myself instead of doing it to like please my parents or win a competition or do it for college. I don't know, compete with someone. Those are all reasons that I didn't really care about. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful because it reset my perspective and it allowed, by letting me go to it, I feel like I fell back in love with it. And just because it was on my own terms. And I guess relating to that, music and art, visual art was definitely instrumental to my recovery. No pun intended. Instrumental. Sorry. You just hang up. Yeah.
All right, bye. All right, that was it.
Yeah, it was really, really a beautiful thing for me because I feel like it took my focus off of my physical body. Like a lot of anorexia, it's like, feeling too fat, feeling like you want to control your appearance. But it gave me a reason. I guess it gave me something that I liked about myself that wasn't physical. So it took all the focus away from me judging my own body, and it put all my confidence and self-worth into like my ability and like what I can do with my hands. So that's why I think I lean so heavily on visual arts and music, because it's like, it makes me feel powerful and it gives me confidence, and it's something that isn't superficial and external. And I think that those kinds of things last forever, like physical beauty fades, but your abilities and like what you can do for yourself, and things that you can do to express yourself, those last forever.
How long did it take for you to gain that good mindset? And I asked this, and maybe I need to be a little bit more clear, but I definitely encounter plenty of musicians, and I got to use myself as an example too, because that need to be perfect, that need to be, a certain standard that's kind of set for you by either your environment or your parents or friends, whatever that is that's surrounding you, it is very much real, for almost any kind of artist that I've ever encountered, again, myself included. And I'll give you a little bit about my backstory too. I'm actually, for being quite open in this podcast, I actually keep my life pretty private for the most part, like a lot of different areas that a lot of people don't know about me. Like I think even before this episode, you and I were talking more about the stuff that I do. But like I come from a very strict family. I've talked about this in other podcasts that I've done. And I come from a very like strict Hispanic family, in the religious side. And,
yeah, me too.
Oh, you too?
Not Hispanic, but like...
Oh, really? I've never heard the young Hispanic name. That's definitely a first.
Yeah.
Okay, so we relate on something. So, it's interesting to me because in the religious Hispanic world, I'm not sure how many people are listening to this are Hispanic, but at least for me, like we came from like the strictest of the strict, and there was an expectation for me, to pursue a certain type of career in that environment. And it was never me, it was never me. And growing up, I was always fighting against this sort of stigma to be a certain thing. And I could feel it. I don't know how to explain it, but you can feel it sort of grinding away on your soul in a weird way. And obviously it's not the same as what you encountered, but I developed this need to be perfect. If I ever made a mistake, or if I ever, didn't play a right note or was too fast or whatever in terms of drums, I borderline would hate myself. I didn't understand that at the time, but it built up as I got older and I got to college. I started to notice that I would feel my heart beat a lot. I would feel very negative when certain things would happen. And I didn't notice that until I stopped to think about it.
Yeah.
I started to compare, like, why do I feel, angry when this happens? Or why do I feel so upset? Like nothing really happened. I just played a wrong note. And when that happened, when I was able to realize, what was going on in my brain, I was able to connect the dots of where it came from. And it was a huge life-changing moment for me. And I'm happy that it happened when it did, because who knows, I might have stopped playing music. But what I'm amazed about with your story is that it sort of in a way damaged you, at the beginning. It was damaging to your life, and that yet you still found a way to go back to it. But like you said, in a different mindset. And so I guess I'm just curious, like, what made you want to continue music? Because you were obviously aware that you needed to take away everything that was causing stress, which was a great choice. But then you started just to fiddle with music again, which was arguably sort of dangerous.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, let me go play with that dog that like bit the shit out of me and put me in the hospital. Like,
yeah.
Let me go try to pet him again. I'm stupid. I'm just kidding. I think for me, I really loved music, but I think it's like the scene I was in, the context that I was in, like, in my relationship to music was negative. Like before I was, my upbringing is also very, very religious. Like my family definitely grew up like super Christian, and then, super conservative Chinese family, and in the classical world. So in the classical world, it's like, there's a lot of rules. It's pretty strict, and it's like pretty cutthroat in terms of like competitions and stuff. You have to be on it. So I grew up in that environment, and it was very restricting and limiting. And part of me always kind of admired the counterculture aspect of like the rock world. I used to sneak off to go see shows. Like I wouldn't really be allowed to, but I would just like go off and, I don't know, go to a punk show or go to like a metal show, or I don't know. Just
nice.
Yeah. That was kind of my way of rebelling. I really liked just, seeing these people thrashing around on stage and having fun. And I liked how it didn't have to be perfect. It was kind of cool. It like became very romanticized to me. So I always I always saw all these bands playing live, and I never imagined that I would be in a band myself. And I would be like, there would be like a role reversal almost. Not a reversal, I guess. Like I would be the one on stage, and there would be someone watching me wanting to be in a band. Like I had no idea. But I guess because I always admired that kind of lifestyle, I decided to pick up guitar, and like I started writing songs for myself. And pretty soon I had a bunch of complete songs, and I was like, hey, I should find a band to play with. So got a bass player, got a drummer, and the rest is history.
Man, I mean, your transition from that to writing music is absolutely incredible. And can I ask this, again, maybe a little too personal, but how does your family deal with this? And by deal, I mean, do they accept it? How do they feel about your choices? And again, I don't want to pry too much. I can tell you, at least from my side, my family has grown to accept a lot of my choices in terms of musically. I mean, I've been successful enough where, they don't care about the financial side too much. But, there's definitely this undertone, especially because some of my family, still being very much involved in my old world, my old strict religious world. There's still this undertone of like, I really wish you wouldn't have chosen to do music this way, but we accept you for being our part of our family. But I feel like they always have this hope that one day I would, open my eyes and come back, to the way it should be. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm curious. And again, hopefully I'm not prying too much, but, how does your family have they accepted your choices and where you're taking your music?
Well, I think they're finally warming up to it because, my dad's coworkers, like, they didn't know that I was his daughter. And then they showed, like, one of his coworkers was showing him a video of me, and he's like, my son really looks up to the guitar player. And then my dad was like, wait, that's my daughter. So it's like, for them. They didn't like, they're not really involved in my musical life at all, but I think they're starting to really try to understand it. Before I felt like they didn't really care to understand it, and they were kind of like not ashamed, but they were just waiting for me to just get over my phase and like go back to grad school and like get a real job, real career, you know. I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. A lot of my dad's coworkers used to be like, "Oh, your daughter is a musician." Like, I'm sorry. So, you know, it really touches me because he stuck up for me a few times. He's like, "No, I'm like proud. I'm proud that she's not following the same path as like everyone else, and I'm proud that she's like doing her own thing." So, like a short answer to all of that would be, at first they were resistant, but now I think after they see me in like a paper and they, you know, people talk to them about me, like I think they're starting to be like, "Oh, okay, she's not a fuck up." Like, great.
Isn't it interesting how, you know, even though you chose to go against the current, I mean, let's call it like a current, you know, you basically had a lot of obstacles emotionally, physically. I mean, we can come up with so many examples, but essentially you chose to basically be yourself at all costs, even if it didn't make sense at the time, because every single one of your fans, myself included, can look at you and again, without even listening to this, not know the challenges that you went through. But they look at you and they admire what you do and they're amazed by your skill and they're like, "Wow, she is so cool." But you weren't that a couple years ago. You had to choose to become who you were, and that led to where the successfulness that you have today. And that is amazing to me. I mean, that's incredibly brave to choose to be unique, to choose to be what you feel you need to be, even when everything's against you.
Yeah, I feel like if there's one thing that I could ever be proud of myself for, it would be like, I think I've been resilient. I think like I've been dealt like a bit of adversity, of course. Maybe my life's not the hardest, but it's definitely hasn't been like smooth sailing by any means. I feel like I'm finally actually really healthy and happy. It's taken like 26 years for me to be where I am right now. And I think I don't regret any of the hardship that has happened because I feel like it was character building. And I do subscribe to what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I think all of that it had to happen for a reason.
I mean, I think those reasons continue to happen because you keep on killing the Instagram game. I mean, every time I open my phone and I'm surfing, you know, my Explore page, I always see you jamming on guitar or doing some cool stuff.
Haunting you.
You are, because you know I have your hospital records, so you're trying to get him back.
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny how you talk about like a transformation because I literally, people don't recognize me. Like people who knew me 10 years ago, they don't recognize me at all because I am a completely different person, even physically. Like before I was sick, I was actually like 180 pounds and I was like super overweight and I was like a mega tomboy. And then it was unhealthy. And then I kind of went on the opposite of the spectrum and I lost 100 pounds in a year. And I ended up, when you lose 100 pounds in a year, it fucks with your heart. Sorry, can I swear on this thing? Is it okay? Are you gonna bleep me out?
Go ahead. Just
okay.
Be open.
It hecks up your heart. And like it hecks up your heart and so it stops working. So I went from 180 pounds to like 90 pounds in a year. And people didn't recognize me at all. They were like, "Who are you?" Like, so in a sense I got to start over completely as like a different person. And it's really crazy.
Did you like starting over? I mean, obviously, we know where you're at now, and you are obviously killing the game, and you're going to continue to grow. But I'm curious, like, when you chose to be different, you know, obviously, it wasn't like one day you sat there like, "Wow, I'm going to be this." It's more like a gradual choice. But was that difficult? You know, because again, like I said before, choosing to be different, you know, from what you grew up with, what your parents expect, what your environment is expecting. It isn't a choice that can be done overnight, at least not easily. It's something you kind of choose progressively to do. Were there any difficulties as you were starting to experiment with guitar and starting to kind of come to fruition to who you are today? Did you face any like adversary, aside from maybe like your parents, but from like your environment, from people that knew you, maybe like, I don't know. Does that sort of make sense?
I think a big one that's always looming is just being a female. I know that's like such a widely discussed thing. It's just funny to me that we even have our own category. Like that's still a thing. It's very cool to support female guitarists, but also I think sometimes it can be kind of patronizing to like have to have a separate category for it.
Yeah, like how they're not just guitarists; it's a girl guitarist.
Or like chefs, like you don't see like, oh, she's a great female chef. Like it's like, no, it's just chefs, Or yeah, with a lot of other fields, there's not really so much of a barrier between the genders. But I think the biggest one is just being respected. People always want to attribute what I have to just me being a girl. Also my race. People are like, oh, Asian people are good at everything, but they don't see that I sit there and like practice my ass off. They don't know like the beatings that I endured like when I was little to get to where I am, like technically. Like, my parents are pretty harsh on me. Yeah, so I feel like that kind of stuff sometimes it's frustrating because you want to be respected for the work that you put in, not for your physical appearance, not for, I don't know, anything else that doesn't pertain to just the art itself.
Okay, I'm glad you bring this up, okay, because I actually talked about this a little bit with someone else earlier last year. Her name's Saya Gray. She's this really great bassist who you've probably seen her stuff on Instagram. And anyways, we talked a lot about, what women have to go through, especially in the music industry. And it's everywhere, obviously. But all I really know is music and music industry stuff. And I'm not even going to pretend to understand what it's like to be a girl in this industry. But I can imagine at least like a tiny bit of what it must feel like to constantly be categorized as, oh, well, she only got that attention because she's a girl. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of men specifically, maybe some girls, but men specifically are known for always making that comparison. Oh, she's a girl guitarist. Well, I mean, she's only got, famous because she can play guitar and she happens to be a good looking girl. You get what I'm saying? Yeah,
I absolutely, I hear that a lot. And it's like, that's why in most of my Instagram videos, I cut off my face because I don't really want it. I don't want someone to notice that. Like, it's about my guitar playing, not my face, not my boobs, not whatever I'm wearing, yeah, I think also, if you want to look nice, there's nothing wrong with that too. It's just shitty that people like to blame, or not blame, but people like to attribute other people's success to their appearance. Yeah, I think a lot of people also say like it's easier for girls to get noticed. And I'll be the first to admit that, like, yeah, I admit that being an ethnic minority, being a woman in the prog scene, in the guitar world, it definitely, I stand out because there's not a lot of Asian girls like playing 7-string Strandbergs or whatever, like it's like a niche thing.
Yeah.
But like, even though I stand out, getting respect is so much harder because everyone tries to, tell you that it's because you're Asian or because you're a girl and because you're hot or whatever. So yeah, I think it's on one hand, yes, I have more visibility. I stand out. On the other hand, I'm looking for a long-term career, and I feel like people like to say it's, it's because of my appearance. So that's not something that's like very viable long-term. So it's like hard to get respect in that sense.
How do you deal with that personally? Like, because I imagine, I mean, again, I don't really know, but I imagine that there might have been some, knuckleheads out there who might have either made comments to you personally or maybe even on social media. And obviously it could be easy to ignore those, but after a while, I mean, if someone was constantly commenting that my success only attributed to the shirt that I wore, I feel like after a while, it would get to me. You know what I mean? And that's just a very minuscule example of what it must be like for you. And so I'm curious, like, how do you deal, or how have you dealt with anyone that's basically been that abrasive to you because of either the way you looked or because you were a girl?
Yeah. You know what? Nobody's ever said it to my face, which
Good.
shows me that the only people who think that are like probably frustrated basement guitarist people who only have access to the internet, and that's the only place where they can say their opinion. I have a policy where I don't read what people say about me because it like colors my perspective on stuff. And I don't know if this is like a too romanticized idealistic vision, but I want to make art just because I want to make it for myself. Like I make everything I do for myself. I don't do it for other people. Unfortunately, I don't do it for my fans. I know that sounds really shitty, but like I feel like if I were to start catering to people, I would lose my integrity as an artist. And it's really important for me to be genuine. And I want my art to represent who I actually am and not what the market is. And maybe that's like a stupid business thing. I'm not very business minded. I don't know if you can tell. You gotta hustle. Like at the end of the day, you gotta do stuff that'll sell. But I also, it's kind of interesting for me. This is something that I've been exploring recently is like, how can I like, have both? Like, how can I market myself, but also retain integrity? Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, keep going.
The thing is like, okay, I was saying that I don't read comments. I don't read stuff because it colors my perception. And it also, I think it makes me into a bitter person, and I want to be a bitter person. I like being like happy, and like, I like giving everyone my time, but I feel like if I were to read all the hate, I would start to be resentful because it's like, wow, I work so hard and I've been through so much, and like people don't know what they're talking about. Like people have all these crazy ideas of who I am and stuff. So, yeah, I try to keep it just neutral.
As you should. That's actually a very smart approach, because especially if you know that there's going to be negative stuff, or maybe not, but the chance of there being something negative that could potentially affect the way you think about yourself, even if you're a strong person, it's good to avoid that if you can.
Even positive stuff. Like, honestly, I think, if too many people compliment me, maybe it makes me complacent. Maybe it's like, it makes me, my biggest fear is becoming egocentric. Like, I really hate that. So I just don't want to become too big-headed. So my solution is just take it all away. Don't read any of it. Just put something up. Don't read. Just let it be.
But you know what? You even took it a step further, and I whispered yes there for a second because I was so glad that you brought up something, because it's just, I love that mindset, and I completely agree. You were basically saying how you do stuff for you. And I think you've mentioned that a couple times already in our conversation, but I cannot stress how important that is for anyone or any creative person out there, because this is something I actually just learned myself last year, especially with doing music my whole life. It's kind of funny how it took me like 26 plus years to figure how to do things just for myself. And it's so easy, like you said, to sit there and, be like, all right, what does the market want? What's popular right now? I should do this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but you gotta double down on who you are and what you like to do. Anyone can copy anything and be anything that they want. But if you double down on who you are and you trust your instincts, the world will come to you. And obviously that's a very oversimplified, way of explaining the thought process. But what that means is if you understand what's important to you and you don't relent, you don't let go of that importance of your art, of what makes you unique, then it doesn't matter what you do. You will stand out. Basically, that's the point. You know what I mean? Because anyone can be successful. Anyone can sell 100,000 albums. Obviously it's easier said than done, but the unique people, the legends, are the ones that stand out like crazy. I mean, there's no other Beyonce. Tons of people act like Beyonce, but she invented Beyonce because that's who she is.
Yeah. There's no point in copying something that's already existing. Like, they're always going to do it better than you. So it's like, you just got to find your own voice and be comfortable in your own skin and own yourself. Like, every time I've made a decision that was like, of course, I refer to people when I make decisions, but every time I've done something where other people's visions were kind of like muddied with mine, it hasn't quite had the same impact as when I just do something because it's authentic to me. And I think that's because the consumers of everything, like art, music, they can detect authenticity. It's like, it's something that I think is really, like, I don't know, it gives something like an earnestness to it. Like when you see someone just in their element, comfortable, having fun, like that's authentic. Sometimes I think anything else can appear forced and people pick up on that.
Absolutely. And you know what's authentic to you that I absolutely love that I've noticed is that you're also multi-talented. And this is actually one thing I wanted to talk to you about, just like even just like privately, but you're a very talented musician, but you're also a very talented artist. And you mentioned earlier that you also picked up visual art, during those years. And I guess I just want you to walk me through some of your art stuff, if that's cool. Like, how'd you get started doing art and like what it is specifically that you do, if I can ask?
Yeah, of course. Art was always my main passion. I went to UCLA for fine arts. I majored in fine arts, like painting and stuff. And actually double majored in fine arts and then visual performing arts education. So I wanted to teach, and I was doing that for a while before this whole music thing took off. Yeah, I never imagined any of this would happen. I thought I would just be like making art at home and like teaching painting to kids. I still work at a school like 1 day a week, just teaching painting and stuff. Um, I really like it. These days when I'm home, I make a living off of painting guitars for people. So people will send me like blank bodies and I'll customize it for them. It's really fun because I get a lot of cool requests and it's like a challenge every time to, um, try to figure out how to like fit their idea on a guitar body. And then it's also really fun because I get to surprise someone with like their very own special guitar, and it's always really great seeing their reaction. Um, so yeah, I guess that's like the extent of the art I do these days. I design everything for my band. It's kind of nice being your own artist and designer because you don't have to outsource, and
Yeah.
nobody can translate an idea you have better than yourself. So yeah.
Absolutely. I realized that, sorry, I was going to say, I realized that transition might have been a little jagged. You know, it's just like we're talking about some deep stuff and I'm like, hey, talk to me about your art.
No, you are allowed to talk about whatever you want. Like I'm like free flowing. I'm chill.
You giving me permission?
Yeah,
Okay,
you can
cool.
talk. You just fire off completely unrelated non sequiturs like all the time. I can handle it.
Okay, cool. What's your favorite baseball team? I'm just
Oh
kidding.
shit. I don't know.
Well, you know, the reason why I'm curious primarily is because, you know, I think as creators, right? Most creators, most musicians in general, we tend to be pretty multifaceted, you know, different areas, not just necessarily art, but because we have that, I mean, I don't know how you would describe it, but that skill to create. We tend to be pretty good in multiple areas. And so I am curious on how you balance your time between art and music these days. Obviously, you went to school for fine art. So you had, in retrospect, like a formal training for that. And so nowadays you mentioned that you work and you design some artwork for people and you paint guitars. I'm curious, like, what takes up most of your time? Do you try and balance both? Do you try and challenge yourself to become better at art, or you pretty much only focus on improving your music side and just kind of maintaining the art, if that makes sense?
It always blows me away how much I can learn, like how much I have to learn. Like I love it though because I feel like with art, I always think like, oh, I'm drawing the same thing over and over again. But then I'll get like a request to do something. I'm like, holy shit, I've never drawn that before. Like I don't even know how I would approach the subject matter. So I do research and I like, analyze pictures of the subject matter and I like am able to translate it. And for me, that's like growing, that's getting better. I think my process with art is very similar to my process with music. Like when I want to grow, what I do is I draw something that I can't draw yet or I'm like uncomfortable with. And then if you do it enough times, you get comfortable with it and become second nature. Just like when I teach myself a guitar thing, when I write a riff, I make sure that I can't play it yet. So that,
Really?
yeah, like I never know how to play any of the riffs that I have on Instagram. Those are all like, I write using my ear, by the way. So I don't really use theory or anything. I kind of just hear a melody and I teach myself it on the fretboard by like using my ear and finding the pitches. And then I just practice it for a long time and then bam, I can play it and then I get better because I can play something I couldn't play before. So I think I'm constantly trying to learn from both, learn in both, music and art. And my way of delegating time for both things is just whatever I feel like doing that day. I have a rule where every day I try to be productive and do one thing creative, be it sit down at my piano and improvise for 30 minutes, practice a song, work on a song, work on a commission for a client, or even just draw for fun. Like whatever it is, I just try to produce something so the day isn't a waste.
Is there ever a day where you just don't feel creative at all and you just got to step away?
Yeah, absolutely. I also sometimes just force myself to, like when I'm really depressed or sad, I'll just sit down at the piano and then I'll play and I'll just feel better. It's crazy. Sometimes you're not in the mood, but then you get in the mood when you touch the instrument or touch the pencil or whatever.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to find that little spark, that one thing that you need to be doing at that moment to, spark the creativity.
Yeah, it's like exercising. Like nobody wants to get up and run, but once you get up and run, you feel great.
Well, I'm an exception. I'm actually a runner too.
God. Hey, never mind. You like to get up and run. I don't like to get up and run, but every time I've gotten up and run, I never regret it. I always feel great.
Yeah, I'm one of those crazies. I think people constantly describe runners as being weird, adrenaline junkie kind of people that enjoy putting pain on their body. I don't know how to explain it. I love it. I love being on the
No,
road.
I understand it. You know what? In college, I used to run 15 miles every day. Like I know it sounds crazy, but like
Not at
I used to,
all.
I get up at 4 a.m. and I'd run 15 miles every day. And then I stopped because I couldn't keep it up anymore. And I also damaged my back because I wasn't wearing proper support. So you gotta get nice shoes if you want to do that.
Yes, you do. Let me ask you this. I know we're going on random tangents,
Yeah,
but
all good.
what was your mileage? What was your time per mile? I'm picky on that.
I don't know. I think it took me like 2 hours and 30 minutes, 3 hours maybe. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, that's actually not that bad. That's pretty good. I don't do long distance running because I hurt my ankle a long time ago. So I can't go past 6 miles without feeling pain, but I mostly focus on speed. But look at that. I'm a runner and you think I'm crazy because I enjoyed running.
I think I admire you. I don't think you're crazy. I admire you and I wish that I could do that to myself. And I probably could. I'm just, you know what? I'm lazy. All my energy goes to brain processes and my body just sits and deteriorates with age.
As all of our bodies do. I mean, it's good to understand that we're getting older and things happen as we get older, you know. I mean, that's just a fact of life. But one of the cool things that I want to transition a little bit more into music stuff because you're everywhere nowadays, and it's because you're killing the game. And so I would like to just kind of get into a little bit more of about what you've been up to in terms of like your band and some of the artists that you've actually played for. So talk to me a little bit about your band, like how obviously I think you said you found a bassist and you found some people together to form a band when you were starting to play guitar. Are those still the same musicians or are they different now?
Yeah, we got a new drummer, but David, my bass player, has been with me for we're childhood friends. We've known each other for a while. Um, yeah, it's really good. We have good chemistry. Like because when you know someone for that long, there's certain things that you just don't have to communicate because you know each other already. And he can read me very well, and he's also just a really good guy. Really good head on his shoulders. Very caring, very genuine as well. So for me, like, I'm really glad that my bandmates are also incidentally good people because I actually really care about that. um, yeah, so I guess that's my band. We've been around for like 2 years, done a lot of touring. It's cool. I never expected my band to take off like that. Like, when we started out, we thought we were just going to be like a garage band making stuff for fun, but things kind of just got out of hand and I'm grateful.
Nice. And how's the dynamic in your band? Are you practically the leader and you basically dictate everything, or do you allow for everyone to kind of pitch in ideas when you write songs or working on a specific performance?
I get this question a lot. So, in order for a band to function, you have to have a leader because otherwise there's no focus. It's just a bunch of too many cooks, you know? So,
Yeah.
I'm the band leader, I guess. I started the band and I write all the songs. Like, although on the last album, I had David write one of the songs and I put stuff to his structure, which was also a really cool experiment because we didn't do that before. But usually I come up with the song structures and everything. But I'm not by no means a dictator. I think it's really important to be democratic about the way you run the band and allow your bandmates to write stuff and contribute things because it's like running a business. Like in order for your employees to care about your business, you have to make them feel like they belong and that they have like personally contributed something so they feel personally invested into it. So I let all my bandmates write their own parts. I love them writing their own parts because then also they have their own voice too. And it's like, I wouldn't want to make a band that just sounds like me, me, me. I want it to
Yeah.
be my voice with like other people's voice, and that's what makes it interesting. Otherwise, I'm just gonna put out the same shit all the time, you know? So I actually really enjoy that it's like so democratic. But, at the end of the day, I guess it has to be focused, so that's why I'm here, like leading it and like coming up with songs and like I don't know, just making final decisions and stuff like that.
And how picky are you in terms of performance? Just because I understand being part of playing for different artists, some can be a little more pickier than others. Are you very meticulous? Like, even though, everyone writes their own parts, for the most part, are you very picky making sure that they play those parts perfectly, or you pretty much just kind of let it happen, as it goes?
My rule is whatever serves the music. Like, if it's like an impressive ass part, but it doesn't serve the music, I don't care because it doesn't serve the music. Like, I want it to be about music and not like I don't know, individual identity or showmanship. Even though that can be cool, like there's a place and time. But I guess as long as it sounds good and it's serving the music, I don't care. I'm pretty like hands off. My instinct is to micromanage, but I find that when you breathe down someone's neck, you don't really get good results. So it's better to have it's like a work environment, if you have a boss just like breathing down your neck, you're going to not do well. So sometimes I have to tell myself to just let it go and just trust, which is hard if you're a perfectionist, but hey, I'm learning. This band has taught me so many things that I would have never learned like by myself. Teamwork, the importance of teamwork and the importance of communication and trusting other people. It's like you're in a relationship with two other people. We're a three-piece. So communication, open communication is really, really crucial, especially if it's like something bad. Because if you keep it to yourself, then it'll fester and it'll like take away from the enjoyment of the music. So we're all really open to each other, and it's really fun. It's taught me a lot.
Was there an example of something bad that happened that you almost let it fester, but you decided that, hey, it's better to communicate?
Well, like, if someone messes up during a show, my instinct is to just be like, what the heck was that? Like after the set. But I've learned that, I got to let myself decompress. So I'll go somewhere and be by myself until I'm not angry anymore. And then after the show, after everyone's like had a good time, I'll just, just bring it up casually. Just be like, hey, that one section, remember, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, dude, try not to suck so much in this one part. Thanks. Walk away. Super passive.
I had to stop myself from screaming before. it's just not a good way to talk to people. So like, I just, I would like to be treated like that. So just treat other people the way you want to be treated.
So true. And where do you see yourself taking this band? I know it sounds like a very like televised like question. Like, so where do you see the future of your band? But I mean, I'm generally curious, like if you have a specific vision, because you were surprised with the success of your band. And I think that's always a good thing, especially when you're doing something that you love. So I'm curious if maybe like you have any vision, like where you want to take this, or you're just kind of letting it happen as it happens.
Letting it happen as it happens, because I find that if I have expectations for anything, like I tend to become disappointed or become too focused on the expectation and the goal, and I stop enjoying anything else that's like very fortuitous and magical that might happen along the way, because I'm so like end oriented. So I'm already so grateful for everything that we've been able to do. Like certainly I'm in a very privileged place, and I'll never forget that. I don't even feel it. So I have like imposter syndrome all the time where I'm like, I don't deserve this. Like this wasn't even my dream ever. Like I just wanted to make music and have fun. And now like, look what's happened. But I'm very, very fortunate. And I want, if anything, like the success that I've experienced, it just makes me want to work harder. So one day I can feel like I actually deserve it. It's kind of, I know it sounds kind of weird, but yeah, I just want to one day feel like I've earned it all, because I don't feel like I've earned any of it. Can
I ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you, do you know specifically why you don't feel like you deserve it?
I think it's because it just felt like I was having fun this whole time. Like for me, I think in my head, I have this correlation between like work and suffering, because, maybe I'm a little masochistic, or maybe everything like, it's felt like work, but this doesn't feel like work. But maybe that's just a sign that I'm doing the right kind of work. I think it's more of the latter. I think it just means I'm doing what I genuinely love. And it doesn't mean I'm lazy. It just means like I'm not wasting my time doing something I don't care about. Yeah. I feel like in terms of plans for the band, well, we recently just got signed by a label. We're working with Triple Crown Records right now, which I'm really excited about because they put out a lot of my favorite bands. So I guess I'm keen on seeing where that goes. And yeah, I just want to keep on putting on good music. I just want to keep on getting better.
Nice. When did you guys get signed, if I can ask? Just recently, or was this a little while ago?
We haven't announced it yet, so it's pretty recent.
Oh, okay. Pretty hush hush.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. We're gonna announce in February, so I'm not freaking out. It's like it's not a secret or anything. Yeah, pretty excited about that. So we're doing that, and yeah, I guess we're sitting on this album, which I think is gonna do way better than our last one because the recording quality is so great. Like seriously, people at the studio did such a great job. Um, yeah, it's my first studio recording ever, and I'm at a really exciting place in my life where I'm just sitting on a ton of music waiting to be released. I think it's always a great feeling.
You know, I love that you have all these things going on for you because it seems like you're always up to something cool. And I think that's what attributes to your success. And I asked you why before, because I feel like sometimes, maybe not sometimes, probably all the time, most of us feel that same way to some degree. You know, especially if we're doing something cool, we either feel afraid to lose it, like we don't deserve it, and maybe like a small percentage people get very arrogant and just like, oh yeah, of course I deserve this kind of thing. You know what I mean? But it's usually either or. And so I'm curious if that old mindset that you had way back, you know, like the anxiety and stuff, does that ever seep through again, or do you feel like you've conquered that for good and like it's gone? And obviously if it's gone, I imagine it's because you're doing more of what you enjoy now. But I guess I'm just curious if from time to time you still have to not necessarily battle those thoughts, but remind yourself, hey, I shouldn't let that come to my brain right now.
I think the anxiety has worsened because I'm in such I'm under such scrutiny all the time.
Really?
I feel like being a quote unquote like public figure, it's like a double-edged sword because on one hand it means you're doing well, right? But then also I feel like you're just so visible to the world. It's like you have one wrong move and thousands of people will see it. It's like kind of scary if you think about it. And then, you know, I think not reading comments, that really helps me because then I don't worry about like what people are saying because it ultimately like doesn't matter. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. But yeah, I think also my inbox fucking terrifies me. Like we're talking about it, I get so much anxiety just looking at the number grow, and there's no way I can reply to everyone. And I'm always like deep down really, really scared because I'm like, I hope someone's not thinking I'm like arrogant and not replying to them. I want to give everyone the time of day, but you know, I used to go and reply to everyone, every comment, every message. I would like do personal messages for people and they bought stuff. Now it's getting to a point where I just don't have that kind of time, and it's like really killing me. Just thinking that I have to do that. So I think it's like a different type of stress now.
Yeah, but I completely have confidence that you're going to overcome that, especially if you're able to go away from music and then pick it right back up and reinvent yourself. I mean, this is just like a bump in the road for you. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm still learning is balancing taking care of myself with like, you know, managing just constant emails and messages and stuff like that. Because I don't know, I get overwhelmed quite easily by it. Social contact, scary.
Well, I mean, I feel like anyone that has like 1,000 messages ready to be read on your email, it's not a very easy thing to look at and attack it. It's very daunting.
Yeah, and it's hard to weed out, like, you know, some people just want to, like, you know, show you their butt or whatever, and some people have, like, a legitimate question. So, you know, I never know which ones are, like, important. Like, if I ignore all my messages, maybe I'm missing something really important, or maybe I'm missing someone's really genuine, earnest, heartfelt message. So I get anxiety about that, too. I'm just like, what if I'm ignoring someone who's saying, like something really sweet and I'm just like not even reading it.
Well, you know what? I'm sure they'll understand. I mean, you have your fans for a reason. And I think that's, you know, the limelight that you have on you right now is well deserved. And I mean that, you know, I get a chance. I'm very grateful that I've gotten a chance to, interview some very influential people. And that's really why I'm passionate about, you know, what I do with this podcast is that everyone's method to life in general, just life, is different from everyone else. And that's the one thing that I want to make sure that I do my part in spreading that word to my fellow creators and just people that are aspiring to go to that next level. Is they look up to people like you. They look up to people like me and other people, more to people like you, definitely not as much with me.
I'm sure people look up to you, Eddie. Like, I look up to you because you fucking go run in the morning and I can't make myself do that. So
I'm going to force you one of these days when we go to NAM. I'm going to force you to go running with me midday.
I have a demo.
Excuses. But what I was getting at primarily is that, I think the message that you're spreading with your career and your life and your account and the constant thing that you're constantly putting out is that you're being yourself. And I know I've said that on this show plenty of times, but I say the things that I think are important because it's so easy as a creator to get stuck in these negative mindsets. And there's no one really to blame really because it's hard. There's a lot of expectations for yourself and to be pouring your soul out constantly, whether it's with music, with art, with whatever other creative things that you're doing. It's vulnerable to be putting that constantly out. And it's so easy to fall into this mindset. In fact, I feel like it's almost bound to happen to almost every creative person. But in my opinion, there's a couple people that manage to rise above, to accept the good and the bad that is in their life, whether, it is expectations, whether it's, expectations from family, from whatever. They're able to accept it all, look at it for what it is, and choose for themselves what they want to be and what they want to put out. And they stick to it. Those are the people that stand out. Those are the people that you look at and you're like, wow, I want that. They look like, they're having a blast. And yeah, granted, maybe their life isn't perfect, but newsflash, no one's life is ever perfect. I mean, Beyonce's life is probably grandiose, but I'm sure she goes through obstacles. And so what I'm getting at is I think your limelight and your account, everything that you're doing is absolutely necessary, especially in our day and age, for creators, for women, for people to see what you're doing, that you're being yourself at all times. That's important.
Thank you. I guess I think I like feeling like I kind of like the feeling that I just need to work a little harder, like that I don't deserve it sometimes because it drives me to like, it just kicks my ass. I'm just like, oh, I should work harder because I feel like people have like such grandiose opinions of me. I feel like I need to work harder to like match them. So I actually feel like I deserve it because at the end of the day, I live with myself and I know that, I'm not this cool person on Instagram. Like I go home sometimes and I eat hot Cheetos in bed. Like, it's like, or I sit there and I sit through the 100 takes where I mess up on guitar until I get that final good take that I put on Instagram. So I feel like because I live with my real like goofy self, I guess that's why I feel like a little bit of cognitive dissonance between how people perceive me and how I perceive myself.
But you know what? That's always going to be the case. No matter whether you're, well known, whether you're not, everybody encounters that, whether it's at their job, whether it's walking down the street, whether it's through friends. Like being 100% who you are is always going to be hard for people to see. You know what I mean? Like what I am outside of my apartment is very different for what I am here. And like you said, like sitting down eating hot Cheetos. I'm not that much of a fan of hot Cheetos, much prefer Doritos, but whatever.
Yeah.
To each his own.
I couldn't agree with more saying that it's really essential to just be yourself, find your own voice, because I think that's the only reason why I've been able to like stand out and stuff, because I just for lack of better wording, I just do me. And yeah, I think if I were to try to be someone else, it wouldn't be as special. I think just being myself and being comfortable in my own skin and knowing what I want, having a clear vision of what I want and not letting other people muddy that's what's going to keep me grounded, I think.
And I'm going to add to that, reminding yourself of that. Anyone listening, I had to learn this too, a bit of the hard way. And I don't want to go in too many details because I feel like this is more about you than it is about me. But the truth is, it's for me, like some of the people that have listened to this before understand that, there was times where I was in a bit of a rut. But what I did that changed my life is I surrounded myself around content that was positive. And by that, I mean like documentaries, podcasts, entrepreneurs, people that constantly were showing and talking about how they were themselves and how they got to where they were. And it wasn't necessarily music stuff, but it was a consistency. It was a consistency that helped me change who I was to who I wanted to be. And I think that's what you have been doing with your career. And that's what I encourage others to remind themselves that, yeah, you can sit here and be like, yeah, I'm going to change my life. And that's great. But it's a process. It takes a while to be able to get out of certain mindsets. But as long as you can remind yourself to, hey, am I being myself? Am I doing what I want? Does this matter to me? That's where you start to see the changes. And as long as you live like that, as much as you can every day, maybe not every day, but as much as you can, then you're going to find yourself in a much better place. And when you look back like a year later, you'll be like, oh, wow, I have changed. Because it happened to me, and I'm sure it happened to you too, like that.
The one thing that I guess I hold myself to is like the only valid reason you ever need for any creative decision or any decision in general is because you want to. Like that's the only rationale you need. You don't need to justify anything you do. It's something that you want. It's something that you feel like benefits your art and serves the art, then you should do it. Don't doubt yourself because you know best.
You know best. Words to live by. And you know what? I love this conversation. Okay. Because I had like a list. I think I sent you the questions and I had another list of questions I wanted to ask, but this happens all the time. And I'm happy that it does. I'm happy that our conversation went where it went. And I think there's so much more we could say, but I think you said exactly what I was hoping you would say. And I really do think there's going to be lots of people that are going to be inspired, that are already inspired by your story, but I'm hoping that by them understanding a little more of your backstory, that they'll also understand that they can do something similar, something that's true to who they are, if they just choose to do it. So thank you so much for being on the show, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me such awesome questions. Like, I'm really glad, like, again, I don't, mind personal stuff. I want people to know, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because you only see the good on Instagram and Facebook. But I think what makes someone more approachable and human and relatable is just everything in between.
Exactly. And we got to give them the real. And so even though you've already said amazing things, you've already said everything that you needed to say. If there was someone, that was sitting right here and, that looks up to you and wants to be where you're at, if you could just summarize everything that you were saying into like maybe a couple sentences, what would you tell that person that wants to make that next step that is maybe a little bit doubtful or can't figure out who they are just yet? Like, what would you tell them?
I'd say the one thing that's keeping me alive and has kept me alive is doing things, making decisions for yourself and not doing things to cater to other people and not trying to mold yourself into someone you're not, because ultimately people can sense that. I think success will come when you just work hard and do what you're actually passionate about. Of course, if you're passionate about something but you're lazy about it, like nothing's going to happen. But if you just put in the time and work and, you're true to the person that you want to be. See, you got to figure that out first. You got to figure out like, what do you want to represent? What do you want your vision to be? What is your vision? Once you have that, just like stay true to that and don't listen to haters.
Yes, well said. Don't listen to haters, and so many great phrases and so much great advice from you, Yvette. Again, I can't thank you enough. I'm a huge fan, and I'm a even bigger fan now, and I'm glad we got a chance to share this conversation. I feel like you become my friend now at this point.
We are friends. You know a lot about my life. You have my hospital records.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, don't tell anybody though. I will be posting these on my story if you guys want to know.
Great. Wait, I gotta follow you on Instagram. Do I follow you on Instagram?
I think you do. I know I follow you, so we'll figure that out. But thanks again. And you're amazing.
Oh, you are amazing too. Thank you. I had such a great time talking about all this.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Yvette. I know that I definitely did. And I'm always learning from my guests. I say this every single episode, and I mean it. I'm always trying to figure out how I can apply their life lessons to myself so that I can grow. And I strongly urge you to do the same. I mean, the reality is Yvette has gone through some hardships, but she came out on top. And that's because she chose to evaluate her situation, figure out what was important to her, and essentially reinvent herself to match that. It's easier said than done, but sometimes in our lives, we do come across forks in the road where we have to figure out what we want. We have to ask ourselves, is this worth it? If it is, continue going down that route. If it's not, maybe it's time to rethink your strategy. Because even something that you love can easily turn into a chore, can easily turn itself into an obstacle if you don't approach it the right way. So what I take away from this lesson is never be afraid to reinvent yourself. Never be afraid to assess the situation, figure out what you love about what you do, and figure out how you can create your version of yourself that makes you happy. Learn from Yvette. She's absolutely killing in the game. And don't be afraid to try new things. That is the whole point of reinventing yourself. Dive in deep. Whatever you see yourself doing, go for it. Reinvent yourself to match that vision that you see. And I guarantee you that you'll see success. So if you like this episode, if you feel inspired by it, I urge you to take some action, go try some new things, and also press the subscribe button because I've got lots of great content coming your way.